And welcome to At Issue. I'm H. Wayne Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us for a discussion about the veto session in Springfield. It's coming up, I believe, October 22nd and then the first week in November. But surprisingly, we won't be talking much about vetoes and overriding of vetoes. We're going to be talking about a lot of other things, though, that are happening in Springfield. Some important things, most notably the pension. And to do that, we have Senator Dave Koehler here. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Koehler is representing the 46th Senate District. He lives in Peoria. Also with us, another Senator, Darren LaHood. Darren, thank you so much for joining us. He is in the 37th Senate District, also representing Peoria. And of course, those boundaries go beyond Peoria in some instances. But and also on the House of Representatives side, Dan Brady is joining us. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
He represents the 105th House District out of Bloomington.
Correct.
And normally we have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 2 senators, 2 state reps. But Jahan Gordon Booth, who's scheduled to be here, had a conflict and is unable to join us. So we'll continue with just 3 Ds, Dave, Darren, and Dan. And before we start...
3 Democrats, I was
No, I don't think we can do that. Before we start, I want to say congratulations. You were named to a leadership position by the new House leader for the Republican Party. So congratulations on being, is it an assistant?
Assistant Republican leader,
Assistant
yes.
Republican leader. And so congratulations on that. Let's start with pension. And you know what? I'm going to sit back and just hear from you because I want to hear what you know. I get the impression that sometimes the rank and file isn't in on the regular updates. Is that in fact the case? Are you hearing much about what's happening with negotiations?
Well, we hear, but this is a moving target. I mean, the dynamics of that committee are such that there are proposals made and they begin to sift it out and positions begin to vary. So it's hard to ever say, well, this is where they're at because it changes all the time. We read through email, through Capitol Facts, through the newspapers and media, what's going on, but this is a moving target.
Does it concern you that it's possible that during the veto session, or maybe in January, that it'll come to you a couple of days in advance and then you'll have to absorb all this information too quickly?
Well, that's possible, but I think all of us would agree here that the committee that was named, some very dedicated people that have tried to work diligently through the summer months, but it really hasn't produced what anyone had hoped for. There's been a lot of distractions. There's been distractions from the administration in a variety of ways. And the committee really overall, as a group, has not met much at all over the summer. Some sub-working groups or some phone calls and things along those lines. But the idea that this was going to be the committee to take the bull by the horns and we were going to have a pension bill to deal with and be called back either end of summer or in veto session certainly hasn't produced that.
Go ahead, Dan.
I would just say I think there's a level of frustration with the public out there because they've been listening and following this whole thing. And if you remember, the governor in his State of the State address back in February said, this is going to be a long, hot summer for legislators. We're going to be there all year. We're going to get this resolved. We got out on May 31st. We went back one day to establish this committee. And the expectation was this committee was going to meet, a lot of good people on there, a lot of knowledge about pensions. We would come back in late summer, early fall, maybe veto, and have a bill. And here we are, and nothing's been done. And I think there needs to be real leadership from the governor on this. We're the only state in the union that hasn't reformed our pension system. We're $105 billion in unfunded liability. I think the governor has to step up and be a leader. Why he doesn't call the legislative leaders, and you referenced this earlier about, the leaders control a lot of this. President Cullerton, Leader Radonio, new leader Durkin and Mike Madigan. Call them into the governor's mansion, lock the doors, and don't come out until we have a solution. To continue to talk and have committees and not have real leadership on this, I think is frustrating. It's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to the taxpayers of Illinois.
As a Democrat, how do you feel about Governor Quinn's leadership on this issue?
Well, I think that there's really 5 people that are I think, charged with this responsibility, and it's the 4 legislative leaders and the governor. I wouldn't be quite so hard on the governor. I think that he has certainly tried to keep our feet to the fire in terms of specifics. I'm not sure he's in in a situation where he can win that, because as soon as he offers specifics, then we reject that and we say, you're meddling into our business. So I would give him a little bit of a break. But I agree with Senator LaHood. There's a frustration out here that we haven't been about this task in the proper way. And what it's going to take, I don't know. I'm sorry that the House did not call Senate Bill 2404. We passed a bill out of the Senate that had bipartisan support. It was never called in the House. I think had it been called, it would have passed. And that bill, along with the fact that we have a two-tier pension system right now, that would have resolved our issues. We've set this date 2045 that we want our systems to be whole, and that would have met that criteria.
Might 2404 have passed if it was called for a vote?
Possibly. Senate Bill 1 that we had from the House, the Speaker's bill that sat in the Senate. Two ships passing in the night. The reality is I've been pretty adamant about this. I think you pick up rank and file votes. We have 5 systems. Put all 5 systems in whatever bill we're going to do. It's fundamental fairness. Right now we have legislation, or have seen legislation, potentially voted on legislation that doesn't have all 5 systems in. We leave the judges out, and we can argue the constitutionality of this whole thing. We know where it's going to get challenged. But we need to look at the fundamental fairness. And the reality is when you go around and you talk to retired school teachers, or you talk to retired state employees or present state employees, and ourselves included, are going to have some pension changes. And it should be that way. But it should be all 5.
What would you like to see in the bill? Are there certain things that you think that are absolutely needed for pension reform?
Well, you can look at what other states have done. And first of all, the reality is we go $17 million a day in debt the longer we don't reform our pension system. So we're bleeding that money. And so, the things we should be funding, transportation, social service agencies, all the things the state do, we're not able to do that the longer we go. And so what do we have to do? I mean, look at what other states are raising retirement ages, I think is something we can all agree on. Looking at the COLA, looking at health care. In our current system right now, to be able to retire at 52 or 55 and get free health care or get a 3% compounded COLA for the rest of your life, you can't find that in the private sector, H. Now those are hard issues when you look at the constitutionality of some of that. But, looking at other states and what they've done and getting across these hurdles, but many of the Senator Kaler just mentioned the Tier 2, and I think that's a great system. I'm a Tier 2 employee. There's many people that came in after January 1st of 11 that are under a totally different system. Can't retire until you're 67. Good thing. You don't get the same match with your COLA. Again, a good thing. Puts us on the path to fiscal solvency. What I've said is, why don't we create 2 or 3 other tiers? State of New York has done that. So prospectively, you're not hurting people that are currently retired that have complied with everything we've asked them to do, but it would be people that are currently in the system are going to have to pay a little bit more. I think that's more fair and equitable. But again, I think the unions are opposed to that right now. And, all along, both these bills that have just been mentioned that Dan talked about passing tonight, the union supported, I believe one didn't support the other, but, they play a big part in this.
Your preferences?
Well, there's 2 things that are important, and I've said this all along. People call my office and they say, what are you going to do about pensions? Well, there's 2 criteria that I have. One is that it has to be constitutional, or at least we have to have a good understanding that it's defensible in terms of a constitutional challenge, because the state constitution says very specifically about what we can or can't do with pensions. The second thing is that it has to be fair. And the reason I voted for 2404, which was a Senate bill, which is President Cullerton's bill, it was negotiated with the unions. Did they like all aspects of it? No. Did they support it? Reluctantly, they supported it. But that alone helped to, in my mind, make it the argument that it was constitutional because it was a negotiated agreement. Again, my point being that if you take 2404 and you take the fact that we have a 2-tier pension system that has been in existence, as Darren mentioned, since January 1st of 2011, we meet our 2045 goals. Period.
Without making any other changes?
Without making any other changes.
What do you think we need, if you had some say in this?
I think we need some actuarial assistance so somebody actually can believe the numbers that are being tossed around out there. Because when you talk to various people, it's various numbers of the unfunded liability where we're really at. The reality is that whatever we do I think it needs to affect all 5 systems. We have 5 systems. I think that's just the fundamental fairness. And I think that I believe it's Representative Lou Lang who continues to tout a bill that he believes is constitutional worthy and would stand the mustard. And it does a couple things. One, it puts all 5 systems in, and number 2, it's going to also rely on the temporary income tax to make that permanent and dedicate that money to pensions. So there's other proposals out there, and the work continues, even though for many of us, and especially around this table, to think that this has been probably 3 years, a lot of folks couldn't agree on Senate Bill 12 way back when it didn't even affect existing retirees. And now look where we're at, in a situation where we've spilled over into existing retirees, but we're really no closer as far as a total agreement. There's some other things to think about, as Senator Kaler indicated in 2404. More of the stakeholders have come to the realization that may be what we need, even though we may have to kind of do it holding our noses, being supportive of it. But the reality is, I think at least the pendulum has shifted to the major stakeholders all understand the day of saying, and rightfully so, I've paid in, I've done everything I'm supposed to, the state has screwed this up. The groups have at least come, I think, full circle to say, we want to be part of the solution.
And can I mention something that I think the public doesn't quite understand, and that is that teachers do not get Social Security. They're not in that system. And I think that the public, even though we know that because we deal with that all the time in this discussion, I had a call when we were discussing one of the pension bills, a call on the floor of the Senate from a woman who is a retired teacher. Says, I want you to understand my situation. Not only do I not get Social Security, I don't even get Medicare. Did not qualify for Medicare. And so this assumption that the federal government takes care of all these folks is wrong. This is their retirement system.
A couple of things. One is the reference to Lou Lang, a Democrat out of Skokie. The 5, we keep talking about the 5 branches. There's judicial. What are the 5 branches?
You have the TRS, Teachers Retirement System, the State University Retirement System, or State Employees Retirement System, State University Employees, the Judiciary, and then the General Assembly.
Okay. You made reference to the temporary income tax increase. It sunsets January 1st of 2015. Is that going to become permanent, or what's your take on that? I mean, that's $7 billion a year, if I recall correctly.
Well, you know why the timing was set that way. It sunsets at the end of this of 2014. And the reason it was talked about in Springfield is that this puts it right center focus as the issue in the governor's race. And so let's have our candidates that are running for governor weigh in on this. And I don't think the legislature is going to do anything until after we see who the next governor is, and then we're going to take some leadership, hopefully, from that person. But this is not going to be resolved. I think next year what we're going to see is we're going to see a half-year budget put together, and that's it. And then the rest is kind of doomsday.
Senator LaHood?
Yeah, so it is going to be the big issue next year. But I guess the way I look at it, I wasn't there when the largest tax increase in our state's history was put into place. But if you remember, the rhetoric and the promises at the time were, pass this tax increase. This will bring down our $8 billion debt, pay off our unpaid bills, put us on this path to fiscal solvency. Now, here we are 3 years later, we're arguably worse off than we were then. And we've brought in close to $15 billion in new revenue. The point being, until we have firm spending restraints in place, I'm not willing to look at, having that continue until you figure out how we don't want to wind up in the same place we were before. So it's not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. And so, I think that is going to be the big issue, but you got to have spending restraint in place so that we don't wind up being in the same position again. We're worse off today than we were then.
Let me have Representative Brady weigh in on that issue.
Well, I don't disagree with Senator LaHood. The main selling point of that temporary income tax increase was this money will be dedicated to pay down the unpaid bill, the mountains of $8 billion or whatever it was. Some of that has been paid down, but nowhere close to where it should be. So it begs the question, well, then what are you doing with the roughly $7.5 billion a year of new revenue that comes in? And what it's been doing is feeding the hungry appetite of spending in state government again. And until someone really goes and really gets at the heart of the problem, and the heart of the problem is spending. Now, is that spending cut's going to get you the $8 billion away? No. I mean, it's been over 14 years of getting into this mess for a variety of reasons. It's going to take that and maybe longer to get out of it. But the fundamental reforms that have to be in place aren't in place. And it continues to be something to where even looking at our Medicaid issue in this state and what was done in legislation in a bipartisan fashion, I might add, to go ahead and move off the rolls people who shouldn't be on Medicaid, over 350-some thousand. That hasn't been accomplished yet. And those are the type of things that I think are extremely frustrating for us and many of our colleagues, as well as the people in the state.
But I want to give a little bit different perspective on this, and I respect what my colleagues are saying. But it is not as if we were on some wild spending spree. What happened is that 2 years ago and 3 years ago, we had to borrow money to make the pension payment. This past year, we didn't. The pension payment this next year is going to be around $7 billion. That's why it's so important that we resolve this issue with pension reform. We have to have pension reform. How we do it, we've talked about. But when we talk about curbing spending, I mean, we had to fight, talking about the Democrat caucus in the Senate, we had to fight to put, from the governor's proposed budget of cutting our schools down to 82% of funding to get them back to the level they were last year of 89%. We're funding our schools at 89% of what we promised them. Now, what it's going to take, and I think that that's got to be part of the discussions that we negotiate. If we're going to negotiate this temporary situation to be permanent, then we have to lay some stakes on the table and say, okay, what are we going to do about education? How are we going to finally fund education at the level that it needs to? And how do we begin to, I think, make it more income tax dependent and less property tax dependent? We're killing our communities with property taxes right now. But those are some of the discussions. So it's not a matter that we've just been on this wild spending spree. We've not. We've had to make some changes. We didn't have to borrow money to pay the pensions, and that at least is a step in the right direction.
I would just reference, where did that money go? Where's that $15 billion? Well, the first year we made our pension payment on time, which was referenced about $5.8 billion, but it's going up to $7 billion this year. I mean, that just gets to the point, this pension beast that we're feeding is taken away from everything else. Then you look at the Medicaid expansion in the state of Illinois. Significant. Close to 1 of every 5 people on Medicaid, 1 of every 2 births on Medicaid. That costs money, taxpayer money. And we talk about this $105 billion unfunded liability for our pension system. This isn't funny money. This is money that taxpayers are going to have to pay back. And so, that's where the money is going to feed this pension system. And what worries me, H, is we're going to go through this veto session. If we don't address pension system, we don't go back till the end of January into February, we're into the governor's race then. And so, the longer this goes, we're going to be in a worse position the longer we go. For everybody that's in a pension system, we got to stop this this hemorrhaging now, because there may not be a pension system there.
You were shaking your head yes. You're in agreement with his analysis that we've got to stop the pension bleeding?
Well, I think that's the 800-pound gorilla. There's no doubt. And until you get that gorilla off our back and get it under control, it's ciphering, all dollars that could be going somewhere else. And that's huge. That's a huge problem.
Let me bring up another financial situation. You are a proponent of finding some way of sustainable infrastructure improvements.
Yes.
How we do it now is every 10 years or 12 years we have a capital bill, and we find gambling money or something like that to try to improve roads or bridges, et cetera. How can we approach this when we're looking at the restrictions that we've been talking about?
The issue, and Senator LaHood and I sit on the Transportation Committee, and this is something that we're going to be really addressing in this next legislative session, and that is sustainable funding of infrastructure. Personally, I believe that we need to come back this next spring with another, I call it a mini capital bill, to continue the infrastructure investment that we've made in Illinois. We're at kind of the third year now of that original capital bill that we passed in 2009. Our projects are just about complete, or they will be completed. We need another shot in the arm, one for our economy, but the other is that we have infrastructure needs that are going unmet. the question is for all of us is how do we do that in a fair way that actually sustains the funding levels that not only our state but our counties, our cities, our township, all the road districts really depend upon. And we know the gas mileage is going up and up and up. When people buy electric cars, which are made right and normal, we're glad they do that, but that doesn't pay for our road system. So we've got to change that.
Mentioning that House Bill 3666 is a proposal to remove the state's sales tax from gasoline. 5% goes to the state, 1% to the municipality, 1/4 to the county. Real quickly around the table, what's your take on whether or not that's a good idea?
Well, I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, again, I go back to, if we had a $8 billion surplus and we had our fiscal problem solved, I think looking at some of those ideas are great. But again, we have to have fiscal restraint in place. And I agree, we need some type of capital program. But until you give the public some confidence and really trust that, okay, we've turned it around. We have some fiscal restraint in place. We're not going to wind up like we did in the past. Then we can start looking at that and how to pay for it. That's the whole thing. How do you pay for that? And right now, the public, rightfully so, doesn't have much confidence in Springfield because we don't have much to show for it.
Gas tax question?
It took us a little over 9 years to come up with the present capital bill, the most recent capital bill. 9 years without a capital bill in the state. To look at that particular piece of legislation, I'll keep an open mind to it, but I think there's too many other groups from a capital side that is counting on that without what Senator LaHood is saying first, and get the fiscal house in order.
I think it's a crazy idea. I do not support it. I think that one of the things that we have seen, though, is that infrastructure spending, the capital bill, is one of the best bipartisan things that we do in Springfield. It is supported by both sides of the aisle. We've got labor and management, the Chamber of Commerce, the unions working together on trying to promote more infrastructure spending. We have done this right, and I think that we've got a very proud record in terms of how we have addressed our infrastructure needs statewide in this last 3 years. I mean, I don't hear this being a division between Republicans and Democrats. I think we've all done a good job on this.
Let's switch gears. We've been talking about money all along here. Let's talk about Senate Bill 10. That's the Religious Freedom and Marriage Fairness Act. Essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it boils down to the same laws will apply to married couples who are heterosexual and those who are same-sex. What's your take? And we'll start with the senator over here. What's your take on this bill?
Well, as you know, procedurally, the Senate voted on this last February. In the Senate, I voted against same-sex marriage. I believe the sanctity of marriage is between a man and a woman, and I voted against it. The bill passed the Senate and is now in the House. Sounds like the House will have a vote on that. Could be in the veto session sometime this fall.
Well, let's go to a House member.
Well, I go back to the Civil Unions Bill. And in the Civil Unions Bill, and in many groups that I met that were pro, led me to believe and understand that the definition of marriage and the understanding of marriage between a man and a woman or a same-sex couple needs to be changed. And what I said was I was led to believe that the civil unions was going to have a level playing field of be able to provide what is needed for those couples without getting into changing the definition between a man and a woman. If the bill came over to the Senate today in the fashion that I've seen, now I have to take into account some of the things that have changed federally here in the last several months, which wasn't the case before. Mm-hmm. But I would see myself most likely voting no on the proposal in the House.
And Senator.
And I respect. I mean, this is one of those issues where people come at it from religious conviction, from just their own personal philosophy, and I respect that. I understand it. I was the chief co-sponsor of the bill. I was the chief sponsor of the Civil Union Bill and of the Senate Bill 10. I was the chief co-sponsor. I think that what has happened to Representative Brady's point is that things have changed on the federal level, which now makes it, I think, essential that we pass equal marriage in Illinois so that that couples of same sex can really be treated equally. It's one of those issues that is evolving over time. Each generation has less of a problem with it in terms of how we've done battle over this issue in the past. I think it'll happen. I think it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Real quickly around the horn, with maybe 15 seconds each, should the state be giving tax breaks of some kind to companies who move ADM in particular? They want $20 million to move headquarters and stay in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to support that legislation, again, until we get our fiscal house in order, whether that's pension reform, our budget, get us on the path to fiscal solvency, then we can start looking at some of those things.
Representative Brady.
What I know of it, my answer would be no at this point. I think we've opened up the floodgates to do this before on a couple different occasions, and here it continues to start down that slippery slope.
And Senator Kaler.
Well, I'm going to take a little different position on this.
In 15 seconds.
Yeah, in 15 seconds. Well, because this issue also affects us here locally. Mm-hmm. What if Caterpillar were in a position now, they're going to be building a new world headquarters, and they haven't asked for anything, but if they were to see that they needed some help, I would be inclined to say, yes, we want them as part of our community. I think the devil's in the detail. I haven't seen the details, but I would be inclined to say ADM is a pretty important industry in this state, and we ought to do what we can to keep them here.
And with that, we say thank you to Senator Dave Kaler and to Representative Dan Brady. And we also say thank you to Senator Darren LaHood. And thank you for joining us on At Issue. Next week, we'll talk about education. The superintendent of Havana has a way of looking at education a little bit differently. We'll talk to him about that next time on At Issue.